Jocelyn, and my performance is Debate and Diplomacy, the Mercury 13 struggle in a time when gender norms overruled logic, facts, biology, math, and reasoning. Hello everyone! I'm Molly Funk and welcome to my press conference. I'm about to become the oldest person to ever go into space, thanks to Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin, and I'm sure you have a ton of questions. I can probably answer a few of them before I go up anyways. You there, from CNN. Why does it matter to me so much that I'm going up into space, and to everyone else? Well, that's a long story. I never expected to go up. They said, Wally, you're a girl, you can't do that. I said, guess what? It doesn't matter what you are, you can still do it if you want to do it. And I like to do things that nobody has ever done. I prepared a statement. Let's see if that'll answer your question. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Those words will forever reside in human memory. That historic day, man first landed on the moon. Since then, several brave men have traveled safely to and from the moon. But let's back up a second. I said the words brave men, didn't I? You see, that's a thing. Women have never been to the moon. Unfortunately, that's usually how space travel has gone. A man accomplishes something, and sometime later, whether it be years or even decades, a woman accomplishes the same thing. But what if I told you it almost wasn't this way? What if I told you that instead of the Mercury 7, a team of men, that first orbited the Earth, it could have been the Mercury 13, a team of women? Ours is a story of debate and diplomacy, of fighting for our rights and our dreams. Buckle up. You're in for a ride. Our story begins with a famous space race. The United States and Soviet Union were neck deep in the Cold War, and both sides were looking for an edge. America's leaders knew they needed to do something, and so the National Aeronautics and Space Agency was born, with the sole purpose of getting a man in space. But they didn't really know what space could do to a person. NASA's best scientists put their heads together, and ultimately came up with a list of requirements for what they thought could best serve a potential astronaut. They had to stand under 5'11", weigh under 180 pounds, and be under 40 years old. They also needed to have 1,500 hours of flight time, to be jet test pilots, and have an engineering degree. Those were just a few of a long list. NASA received many applicants for their space program, but they ultimately chose the Mercury 7, and were confident that they had chosen the best possible astronauts. That is, aside from a man named Dr. William Lovelace, Director of Space Medicine at NASA. He had recently heard of a study that proved that women were more adept at completing monotonous tasks than men, and also performed better under prolonged isolation, both important skills for space travel. He'd also recognized that women were generally shorter than men, and weighed less, which mattered because each pound a rocket had to lift cost over $500,000 in fuel. Dr. Lovelace wondered if a woman would make a better astronaut than a man. He wondered if NASA was wrong. Along with some colleagues, Dr. Lovelace thought it would be a good idea to test some female pilots alongside the men for comparison purposes, and he just so happened to bump into one of the best at an air conference one night. Enter Jerry Cobb, an incredibly skilled pilot with dozens of international records for speed, altitude, and distance. When Dr. Lovelace asked if she were willing to undergo astronaut testing, she leaped at the opportunity, and together the two assembled a list of female candidates, although one woman joined the list of her own volition. Meet Wally Funk. That's me! Upon reading about the women's testing that was going on in a magazine, I called up Dr. Lovelace's office, wanting in on it. When asked why I should be part of the testing group, I began citing a long list of accolades and achievements, and unsurprisingly, I soon joined the testing group. There were over 120 uncomfortable and even painful tests, yet we never complained and were always calm and professional, quite different for the Mercury 7. When the testing results came in, Dr. Lovelace was thrilled. In every single test, we scored either just as high as the men or outdid them by a lot, sparking public debate about whether women would make better astronauts than men. Dr. Lovelace excitedly shared these results at a medical convention, and phase 2 of testing soon began, which quickly yielded similar results. The women outscored the men. The reason the men's and women's behavior was so different was that the men were guaranteed their spots. They had already made it through the selection process, so whatever they scored on the tests was good enough for the doctors. We didn't have this luxury. We knew that just by being there, taking those tests, we were part of an argument, and we wanted to give our side of the debate the best possible evidence. Phase 3 of testing was just days away from beginning when we all received letters in the mail stating that Phase 3 had been cancelled. Confused, we reached out to Dr. Lovis, but he was just as clueless as we were. As it turns out, when the vice president of NASA had found out about the testing that had been going on, he had disagreed with what Dr. Lovis believed, that women could outdo men, and ordered testing to stop. Upon learning this, the Mercury 13, as we were later dubbed, went public, going on news channels, on radio shows, anywhere we could go, and anything we could do, we did. And eventually a public house committee hearing on gender discrimination was convened. The debate on the surface may seem simple. After all, we couldn't complete all the requirements that NASA had set forth. The requirement that was the issue, that of being a jet test pilot. The problem? Only military members could fly jets, and only men could be in the military. NASA's defense was that since we couldn't complete all the requirements, we couldn't be astronauts. But the Mercury 13 disagreed, pointing out that John Glenn did not have the engineering degree that was required. Yet he was still part of the Mercury 7, proving that NASA was willing to make exemptions, at least for the men. Jerry Cobb and the Mercury 13's very diplomatic position was that we couldn't see a fair or logical reason to keep women from space, and argued that by doing so, NASA was making a decision solely based on gender discrimination. As Jerry Cobb put it, "We women pilots who wish to be part of the research and participation in space exploration are not looking to join a battle of the sexes. As pilots, we fly and share mutual respect with male pilots, and very well know how to live together in our profession. We see only a place in our nation's space future without discrimination. There are sound medical and scientific benefits to having women in space." Unfortunately, the opposing side of the debate was represented by none other than members of the Mercury 7. John Glenn and other astronauts had a very different and far less diplomatic perspective. "I think it gets back to the way that our social order is organized, really. The men go off and fight the wars and design the airplanes and come back and help design and build and test them. The fact that women are not in this field is a matter of social order. It may be undesirable." This viewpoint was common among those present at the hearing, even the congressman, who went so far as to say, "We are protecting women in the kitchen, on the ground, and in the home. We do not want them to get out where things are exciting, or to have adventure, where there might be risks." In the end, what sealed the deal was the supposed compromise, introduced by Jacqueline Cochran. She was a slightly older ace pilot, who headed the WASP program in World War II. She suggested creating a separate program in a few years that she would head for female pilots. "They should, I believe, accept this delay and not get into the hair of public authorities about it. Their time will come, and pushing too hard just now could possibly retard rather than speed the date. It is better to be sound than quick." In the end, as I'm sure you all know, the Mercury 7 went up to space, successfully completing their mission, while the Mercury 13 remained down on the ground. We never gave up, though, and were constantly campaigning and pushing to get women into space. And eventually, over 20 years later, as a consequence of our hard work, Sally Ride became the first American female astronaut to go up into space, and several others followed her, though never the Mercury 13. That is, until today, in the summer of 2021, when I become the oldest person to ever go into space, thanks to Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin. You there, from Washington Post. Why have I kept campaigning to go to space for over 60 years? Well, that's the thing. I have this quality that is shared by the other members of the Mercury 13. I am not a quitter. Who knows, maybe the day that we get a woman on the moon is closer than we think. She may even have a funny sense of humor and say some new words to reside in human memory. That's one small step for woman, one giant leap for womankind. Any questions?